Hey, it's Juck. Today is the 6-month anniversary of Juck on Bucks. The family told me I wouldn't last a month, but here we are, guys.
Second this season. Henderson has the edge and more. Henderson cuts back. 10-5, touchdown Ohio State.
Henderson gets away. Henderson stays on his feet. There he goes. Travion Henderson. Touchdown Ohio State. Luke with a motion man. Henderson explodes forward and is in. Touchdown Ohio State.
It's first and goal. It's a run.
Hit the banner.
Inside the
Be
5.
proud when you
Touchdown
get old
Ohio
and
State.
come back and
The
look.
Buckeyes making that look easy.
I can't believe
Travion
God gave me a chance to be a Buckeye, because there's nothing like it.
Let's get it. And I don't think he's going to throw the ball as much as he thinks he's going to throw the ball now that Chip Kelly's on board. And I'm happy about that. More quarterback. The truth is, Ryan Day has made a change philosophically, but it's none of those. You all know who wins. LSU is the drunkest fan base in the country. And welcome to Juck on Bucks on a Friday. Thank you so much for joining me, guys. As always, appreciate y'all so much. Thursday was the final day of Big Ten Media Days, and it saw guys like Sharon Moore and Dan Lanning and Jed Fish, not Dead Fish, Curt Cignetti of Indiana, and Curt Cignetti of Indiana has made some noise at Indiana, and it started with his speech. He came in and said, well, let's just watch it together.
Hey, look, I'm super fired up about this opportunity. I've never taken a back seat to anybody and don't plan on starting now. Purdue sucks. But so does Michigan and Ohio State. Get
But so does Michigan and Ohio State. I like it. I like what he did there. He had to fire up the folks. It reminded me of the 310 days speech. So he said at Big Ten Media Days, quote, I remember Jim Tressel when he went to Ohio State. I think he said something about beating Michigan. I just ramped that up a little bit, I guess. We've got about 17,000 people in the basketball arena, and I've got to get them excited. Ramped it up. I don't know about that. Maybe trashed it up a little bit. It certainly does not compare to this.
Young people in the classroom, in the community, and most especially in 310 days in Ann Arbor, Michigan, on the football field.
What makes him so good is his delivery. He knew that when he said 310 days, when he was making that thing, we putting it down on paper and deciding what he's going to say. And remember, he came in, there was a lot of people really skeptical about that hire. And he knew he had to win him over right off the rip, and he did, of course, right then and there. But he knew when he said 310 days, nobody would know what the heck he was about to get to. And they didn't. You heard him. Dead silent. Just the foresight to set it up like that, to take the pause. He takes the pause, he turns around.
Especially in 310 days in Ann Arbor, Michigan, on the football field.
Flawless. He's absolutely flawless. And that is, of course, a legendary speech, right? But that one was planned well in advance. I mean, he had to make that the absolute speech of his life. He was coming to win over a lot of skeptical Buckeye fans. And he did right there. When he said it, a whole lot of people's opinions changed on him. They said, all right, this is our dude. Then, of course, he backed it up. And at that point, it was total buy-in from everybody. But what's so amazing about this man, and why I'm just one of the reasons, one of the many that I just absolutely revere him, is They are currently using at the Woody a recruiting video that they're playing for guys when they come on visits. And it already includes another legendary line. A legendary line that he just dropped off the cuff at spring practice. Just this spring practice right now, 2024. He just comes in and drops this one on him, and it's already a legendary line.
Be proud, because when you get old and come back and look, you're going to see, I can't believe God gave me a chance to be a Buckeye, because there's nothing like it.
It's playing. It's you don't even see him. It's something else is on the screen. And that is just playing like the voice of God. That line right there that he just delivered off the cuff at a random spring practice. And gosh, chills every time I hear both of those. I mean, what a dude. Anyway, Curt Cignetti, nice try. You didn't ramp it up one bit. Not one stinking bit. A big year of recognition for another Ohio State legend is Archie Griffin, who is getting a statue built for him outside of the Rose Bowl, is now going to be dotting the I at the Akron game. And if anybody deserves that, it is Archie Griffin. Archie, obviously, the two-time Heisman Trophy winner, the only one still, but he's an ambassador for Ohio State. He's an ambassador for the state of Ohio. I love Archie. Everybody loves Archie. How could you not? Just a great dude. Seems to constantly just go out of his way to do anything he can for Ohio State. And there are some names on the list who've dotted the I, who, certainly if they were allowed the opportunity to do that, Archie should definitely be. Let's go through that list. Former university president Novus Fawcett, the Ohio State president from 56 to 72, dotted the I in 71. Comedian Bob Hope, born in London, grew up in Ohio, dotted the I in 78. Woody Hayes, he dotted the I in 83, and that was the first time being publicly honored at Ohio State since he was fired 5 years prior for the Charlie Bauman punch. Former Ohio State ticket director Robert Reese in 1985. The Buckeyes beat Pitt that day 10-7. Former heavyweight boxing champion James Buster Douglas. The boxing legend that knocked out Mike Tyson in 1990. Douglas dotted the I later that year when the Buckeyes hosted USC. He called it an awesome feeling. Is that the most controversial one? I don't know. Tell me what you think. Former Ohio State University president E. Gordon Gee. The 13 seniors of the 2002 Ohio State National Championship team. Among the seniors of 2002, Mike Doss, Donnie Nicky, Matt Wilhelm, C. Grant, who sang Carmen, Ohio at the team's celebration in Ohio Stadium a few weeks after the Buckeyes topped Miami to win it all. Golf legend and Ohio State great Jack Nicklaus, Ohio State alumnus, donor, and CEO of Limited Brands Les Wexner. Wexner dotted the I in September of 2011 before Ohio State beat Akron 42-0. Why are we picking on my boys here? Former band composer and arranger Richard Hine. Former band director Jack Evans. Former band director Dr. Paul Drost. These are all band directors now. Here we go. Former astronaut and U.S. Senator John Glenn. Glenn dotted the I with his wife Annie before Ohio State's opener in 2009 against Navy. That is an appropriate opponent for John Glenn to dot the I. I like that. Nebraska coach Matt Rule thinks that the Big Ten is the toughest conference in America. He called it the NFL of college football because it stretches coast to coast over different time zones, various weather, and not to diminish anything from the SEC. The SEC is amazing, but the challenge in the Big Ten is going to be really difficult with the travel and the weather and the great teams. I read the stat last week that if you take Alabama out of the SEC and you count playoff wins, the SEC has 7, the Big Ten has 7, and the ACC has 6. But you can't take Alabama out, or you'd have to take the Big Ten's best guy out. And if you did that, well, it'd be a pretty big gap. And all the other stats are a pretty big gap as well. I mean, I'd like to say the Big Ten was better, but it's just not. It's just not. Though I think the gap has closed. As for the travel, Lincoln Riley made a pretty good point. In fact, Dylan Gabriel made the same point today, that they must be saying this at all those schools out west. Nobody makes a big deal about it when the Chargers play the Jets in the NFL. But for college, everybody makes a really big deal about the travel. And I don't think, for a 1 week deal, it is a big deal. But for those teams out west, when they have to make several trips every year, out here, that's a pretty big deal. I think that really adds up. That takes a lot out on a team. And when you're younger, you don't deal with it as well. I talked about my feelings on Oregon and Washington having a great home field advantage because everybody's got to travel way the heck up there to go play them. Didn't really factor in that, they got a pretty big disadvantage every time they travel out here, and they got to do it more times than we got to go out there. So I guess it kind of evens out in the end. Rule also said that he thinks the Big Ten should get 4 playoff teams in every year. I think most years there's going to be 4 Big Ten playoff worthy teams, probably 4 in the SEC as well. There's 8. That leaves you, 2 ACC and 2 Big 12, or 2 ACC, 1 Big 12 in Notre Dame. If you didn't have to have that automatic qualifier group of 5 school, which I don't have a problem with the group of 5 getting in the playoff. I just think they should have to be top 12. So we know we're going to 14 anyway, right? We got 2 years of this. They'll go to 14. And when they do, it'll be almost guaranteed that the Big Ten gets 4/5 teams in every year. And when that's the case, if you are a team like Ohio State, most years you can probably lose 3 games and make the playoffs, which, I'm not thrilled about. But these playoffs are going to be fantastic. I want to go through with you guys. I went back and did 23, 22, and 21, the playoff fields, because I wanted to look at the home games. So what would the home games have been, these on-campus games, in 23, 22, and 21? In 2019, Georgia hosts Memphis. Oregon hosts Utah. Baylor hosts Penn State. And Wisconsin hosts Florida. So those are our games that are played on campus. They're playing at Georgia, Oregon, Baylor, and Wisconsin. That's pretty fun. Skip 2020 COVID year. 2021, Georgia hosts again. They would have hosted Utah. Cincinnati would have hosted Michigan State. Notre Dame would have hosted Oklahoma State. And Ohio State would have hosted Ole Miss. I would love that. So the home venues again in 21 were Georgia, Cincinnati, Notre Dame, and Ohio State. That's pretty slick. 2022, TCU hosted Tulane. Ohio State hosted Penn State. Alabama hosted USC. And Tennessee hosted Utah. TCU, Ohio State, Alabama, and Tennessee are our venues in 2022. And in 2023, Florida State would have hosted Liberty. They would have gone from getting left out totally with an undefeated season to hosting Liberty. Georgia hosted Ole Miss. Ohio State hosted Penn State again. And Oregon hosted the Missouri. So home games again, Florida State, Georgia, Ohio State, and Oregon. Those are 4 sweet home venues. Love that. So pretty fun exercise to go back and look at these. Going to be exciting. There's only 1 year where it kind of wasn't awesome. That's the Georgia, Oregon. Then you got Baylor and Wisconsin. Still pretty good. Really good. A playoff game in Wisconsin sounds pretty fun. I don't know. So when we talk about making the playoffs, there's 2 ways to make it, right? You win your conference, or if you play in the Big Ten or the SEC, you lose no more than 2 games. If you lose no more than 2 games and you are in the Big Ten or the SEC and you're an upper tier team, you're in like 90% of the time, particularly when you're a team like ours. When in doubt, they go with the more talented team. They always have. It's just the way we're all wired. If you know that Ohio State and Wisconsin are sitting there with similar resumes. They go with Ohio State 100% of the time because they know that talent can provide a matchup to other teams and could potentially win. It's just the way we're wired. It's just the way it is. So you can only lose 2 games. Now, the same type of deal applies to USC. And Lincoln Riley was asked about the rivalry with Notre Dame this week. And he had a lot to say, man. He had a lot to say. And I feel like this dude is trying to that's their biggest rival. And it sounds like he's going to try to get out of this game, just like he tried to get out of the LSU game this year that was scheduled, quite a bit in advance before they made the Big Ten move. Riley said of the rivalry, "I would love to keep playing it. I know it means a lot to a lot of people. The purist in you, no doubt. Now, if you get into the position where you got to make a decision on what's best for SC to help us win a national title versus keeping that game, then shoot, you got to look at it. And listen, we're not the first example of that. Look all across the country. There have been a lot of teams sacrificing rivalry games, and I'm not saying that's going to happen. But if we get into this playoff structure, and if it changes or not, we're in this new conference. We're going to learn something about this as we go. We need to find out what the best track is to win the national championship, and that's going to evolve. Alabama was ahead of the curve for years, right? I thought on how they scheduled in the non-conference, right? They would occasionally hit the marquee non-conference game. They played 2 other not very good teams, and they'd play one late so that they essentially got a little bit of a bye week right there late in the season when they're a little bit beat up. They didn't schedule for fans. They scheduled to win championships. And so my hope is we can do the best thing, schedule to win championships. And that includes a rivalry game for all that comes with that and all that means. But if you get in those positions and you got to make a decision on what the priority is, it's not an easy answer. It's very clearly an easy answer for him. He just straight up told us. He definitely does not want to play Notre Dame anymore, just like he didn't want to play LSU this year. We could take a lot out of that statement there. I mean, for one, this guy definitely wants to win. He wants to win championships. He's very driven. He does not give a damn what anybody thinks about him. And he's a threat. He's a threat in the Big Ten. And, he's a dangerous guy. That's a dangerous program. He's got money coming in. He's got energy coming in around the program with the new hires on defense. I think he's going to get it back in order. And they're going to be something to deal with. I really do. But, man, is he scummy. He just gives me bad vibes.
Yeah, well, we are at the top of the Big Ten conference. I mean, we're at the top of any conference. I don't ever look at ourselves below anybody, and I never will. Listen, 2 years ago, look where Ohio State and Oregon were 2 years ago. Look what they took over. Look what we took over. It takes time. I'm not a magician. I can't wave a magic wand and everything just be perfect right away. But find one area that we had to make progress. So this thing's got momentum. It's coming. Nothing's going to stop it. That's fine. They started at a different point. We'll see where it ends up.
Coach. But the rest of the Big Ten, when we think about the Buckeyes schedule, I mean, he's right, isn't he? He's definitely right. So we always forever played a big-time out-of-conference opponent. Most of the Big Ten didn't. So if he's got to play Notre Dame every year, essentially that's his one big out-of-conference opponent. And if nobody else in the conference is going to play that big out-of-conference opponent, then why should he? Like, that's what he's thinking. We, as college football, need to preserve those big out-of-conference games, or else the beginning of the season is going to be horrible. We're going to see nothing but big teams playing MAC teams. Like, that's what it's going to be throughout college football if the committee doesn't change the way that they judge this. When you've got 2 teams sitting in front of you and you're a committee member, you got one team that's 9-3, one team that's 10-2. Both of them had 3 very nice wins on their schedule, and the rest of the games they were favored by and they took care of business. But the 9-3 team challenged themselves by playing a big out-of-conference game early on in the season. They played good, but they lost. Now, normally, we would look at that 10-2 team and that 9-3 team and say, well, I mean, this team's 10-2. They're the ones that are going. I think that they need to value the 9-3 team in this scenario over that 10-2 team, because the 9-3 team took the chance, took the extra beating, took the game against the better opponent, and entertained all of college football by going to play that game. So the fact that they lost that game shouldn't be held against them in this scenario. Both of these teams got 3 good wins. And this team went and tested themselves against a big out of conference. But until the committee does that and shows that they're going to do that, we're going to keep losing games like this. We are. But if you're scared that you're going to lose more than 2 games in the season, like this guy clearly is, I mean, that's not a championship mentality. That's a loser mentality. I've always wanted a schedule like Georgia's been playing lately. So Georgia plays Georgia Tech every year. And Georgia Tech is what I would say, okay, that's your medium P4 opponent. Then they play their good P4 opponent. So Clemson, they open up with. Later on in the year, they play Georgia Tech. Then they play their SEC schedule, and then they got their one cream puff. So one cream puff in our case, then one West Virginia or Kansas State level kind of team, and then one big dog, one Texas or Bama or LSU. That's the perfect schedule for me. And then our Big Ten schedule. I would love that. But like Lincoln said, man, until they start to change the way they do business and how they judge those losses, because they value losses more than wins. Like, that's what you're saying. Even in that scenario I listed, if that 9-3 team had 4 big wins and the 10-2 team had 3 big wins, they would still give it to the 10-2 team. We've seen it. That's how it plays out historically. So until they start favoring the 9-3 guy who took the test in the beginning of the year, it's just going to stick like this, man. And people are going to keep getting rid of these big games. You know, Oklahoma's not going to play Oklahoma State anymore already. Like, I want to see that game. That's a great game. So he's kind of right, but he's also a chicken bleep. You know what else I was thinking? Who is the team that we could call Ohio State's, like, if we had to say, all right, not a rival, but who's the out-of-conference team that Ohio State has played the most? And I was drawing a serious blank. I mean, now that we've got the Pac-12 teams in the Big Ten, I would say there's a couple of them that we have played more than most. Obviously, USC. All right, I looked it up. This is pretty surprising. So the team that the Buckeyes have played more than any other team in the history of the sport is the Pitt Panthers. We've had 25 matchups against the Pitt Panthers. And the second most matchups for another team, we'll call them out of conference, though they are in conference now, is USC. We are 10-13-1 in that series against USC. The third most matchups, with a 10-2-1 record against them, team we just lost to in the Cotton Bowl, the Missouri Tigers. Third most matchups ever out of conference, Missouri. Fourth most matchups, Washington. 12 matchups against the Huskies. We're 9-3 against them. Of course, they're now in conference, but, you know, as of last year, they were the fourth most matchups against a team not in the conference. And fifth, in the history of Ohio State football, the Oregon Ducks, 10 matchups. Buckeyes are 9-1. And I never would have guessed that they were the team out of conference we had played the fifth most matchups against. That's pretty wild. After the Ducks, you got UCLA with 9, Cal with 8, TCU with 7. And we've spread it out quite a bit. The fact that Pitt has 25, big outlier. And I had no idea we played them that many times. Pitt with their 11 national championships. You know what I mean? They got a lot. They got a big pile of them, at least like 7. But I wish we had an out-of-conference rival. I really do. I think that would be sweet. If you could pick an out-of-conference rival, who would you choose? I think we should get some nominations and do a poll. Give me some nominations for an out-of-conference rival, and we're going to do a big poll. We'll do a 5-team poll. Speaking of some polls, we got a couple to go over. Okay, now, I proposed this question, and listen, here's the deal. Like, these are your only options. I'm not giving you the best options. I got a lot of people who weren't quite understanding the question. You have to trade Ryan Day. Somebody came in and said, listen, I am making you trade Ryan Day. I know you don't want to, but you have to. And you have to pick from one of these guys: James Franklin, Lincoln Riley, Kirk Ferentz, Greg Schiano, and Deshaun Foster. And I had people writing in, well, I don't want them. I want Dan Lanning. Well, I know you do. That's why he's not on there. So you got to pick from one of those guys. And Lincoln Riley edged out Greg Schiano, which surprised me. I thought this would be a Lincoln Riley, James Franklin race. Somebody voted for Deshaun Foster. I put that up to troll. They definitely were trolling me right back. Kudos to them. But Lincoln wins barely. But keep in mind, when I put these up, yes, I know it's not your first choice. But I'm forcing you to make a difficult decision, because choosing Dan Lanning isn't a difficult decision. Now, Jack Sawyer, over 10.5 sacks, 135 votes. 58% say Jack Sawyer over 10.5 sacks. I'm going to save this one. We'll come back to it at the end of the season. And USC's best game outside of Michigan in conference, we got Penn State takes the lead. Now, today's poll question. Okay, you are the offensive coordinator at the University of Akron, and you just got offered to be the head coach at these 4 programs in the coaching carousel. Where are you going and why? LSU, Georgia, Alabama, and Texas. Let me know. And this is a popular one. We got 50 votes already in like 5 minutes. Yesterday, we talked about Jerome Miles. Jerome Miles is the 5-star wide receiver that Brian Hartline had offered. 2025 guy, not a 26 guy. And Bill Kurlick of 24/7 caught up with Jerome. Jerome said that the offer was unexpected. They texted, and then Coach Day called him and offered, which is kind of disappointing, because I was hoping that Hartline had developed a bit of a relationship with him, and that's why that was happening. Doesn't seem like that yet. However, he puts Ohio State right at the top with Texas A&M and Utah. He says he's going to come and get a visit during the season. He's in no hurry. His recruitment is wide open, and I think we've got a good shot here. Michigan also thinks they have a good shot. He's looking at A&M, Utah, Ohio State, Michigan, Penn State, Alabama, and LSU. Buckeyes already in the top 3, man. I like where we're sitting here. And in other news, not so fantastic news, Charlotte, North Carolina, Providence Day, 5-star plus offensive tackle David Sanders, who's going to choose between Georgia, Nebraska, Ohio State, and Tennessee, is set to visit Nebraska and Tennessee. Sanders will get to Nebraska this weekend. After the family's visit last time to Lincoln, his mom spoke to On3 about the trip. We had a great weekend in Nebraska. We had an opportunity to spend time with Matt Rule. He and the staff are extremely grateful that we spent the weekend with them. All the coaches spent a lot of time with us, explaining how David would be a game changer for the program. Now, in finding out David was the highest rated prospect ever to visit Nebraska, was a total shock. So Nebraska's a real player here, man. I mean, they really are. I don't see any reason why he would make a return trip. And to add a little juice to it, Dylan Raiola tweeted this earlier. Look, Nebraska supports their team. He's calling for them to come out for David Sanders. I'm guessing there are going to be a lot of crazy Husker fans welcoming him as he pulls up with Dylan Raiola, who's going to pick him up personally from the airport. I think there might be some movement. I'm telling you, I just got a weird feeling that they're moving on this, and I think they're making headway. But he's also going to see Tennessee. Quote, I just love Tennessee's coaching staff, Sanders said in May. Coach Heupel and Coach Ellerby, they do a great job with that personal connection. I think out of anybody, they do the best job calling, texting, staying in contact with my parents and building that relationship. I just feel like you can be yourself at Tennessee. There's nothing you have to do differently, even though it's an SEC school that wins a lot of games and is in contention for winning a national championship year in and year out. That's a place you can go and freely be yourself. I feel like you can go there, develop, and be the first big-time offensive tackle to come out of Tennessee. They got everything you need to be successful there. Now, that doesn't mean he doesn't feel all those same things about Ohio State. But we could look at this glass half full or glass half empty. He's going to Nebraska and Tennessee because he still has questions about those programs and wants to make sure he didn't miss something. He doesn't need to come to Ohio State because he's seen everything he needs to see. All the questions are asked. All the boxes are checked. I do think all the questions are asked and all the boxes are checked at Ohio State, or he'd come back. That's not to say all the questions and boxes aren't checked at Tennessee and he doesn't just want to get back there one more time. What I don't think this is money. I don't think he's going to visit to collect a paycheck. This is a guy who's about to sign close to a double-digit college contract in the millions, right? Like about to make $10 million bucks, and then $100 million in the NFL. Like, come on. It's tough, man. I'm telling you, dude, we are cutting it close. If we miss out on this dude, which I still don't think we're gonna, but it's just like there's nothing, there's no backup plan. In fact, Alex Gleitman had an article, and he is a Letterman Row recruiting guy, been doing it for quite a while. And in his article, he puts down the flawed strategy and that the Buckeyes need to change their strategy in the offensive line. The fact that there are no backup plans and the very selective way that Justin Fry recruits, which you guys know I've been pointing out for months now. It's starting to make its way around, and it's starting to become kind of at the forefront here, which is a good thing because that's the way things change in at Ohio State. It comes from pressure. Like that's the only way, honestly. But the Buckeyes have made a big mistake this week. They've made a big mistake. You know, I call things like I see them. I pat on the back when things are great, but they made a big screw up this week. It's a big screw up that they're not having anything on campus. We've got recruits of ours. It's just about playing defense as much as it is playing offense. We got guys like Ziggy Grady and Naeem Offord going other places. Chris Henry Jr., the guys are going to Oregon, to Auburn, to LSU to have a good time at their campus with their recruits instead of coming to Columbus to hang with our guys. It's a big mistake. So today, right now, is the 6-month anniversary of Juck on Bucks. My family told me I would only last a month, and here I am. This show is more successful than I ever could have imagined, thanks to you guys, and I truly appreciate so many of you who have reached out to me, told me how much you like it, supported the show, supported me, got the word out, leaving comments about it at other places. I've had a tremendous amount of fun. It's been a ton of work. I put a lot of work into it, but I enjoy it. It's very rewarding for me. I never got into this thinking that it would be something that I would try to parlay into anything else. I didn't think I'd ever have the option to do that. But something's changing. And the show on our 6-month anniversary has been picked up by a larger station. So when you tune in to your Monday Juck on Bucks, the Monday through Friday episodes only will no longer be on the Juck on Bucks channel in the morning. Those episodes will be airing on the Menace to Sports channel. The weekend show will remain on the Juck on Bucks channel, as will all of my live shows. And as we head into the season, there's going to be a lot more of those because what this opportunity has now afforded me the option to be able to do a little bit less at work and be able to focus a little more on the show. And what I'd like to do is when the morning show airs over there, maybe 3 times a week during the season, is to be able to do an afternoon kind of second show where we talk, things move fast during the season, and it is the season of dreams after all. So popping on here in the afternoon and maybe interacting a little bit more with you, because the show's not going to be live in the morning. I think that's going to be something that we should probably do. So that's what's going on, guys. If you are a member of Juck on Bucks, nothing changes for you. The show still gets sent to you directly as soon as I upload it in the evening, the night before. And everybody else, it's going to air Menace to Sports Monday through Friday, 8 or 9 in the morning. We haven't decided which one yet. And then I will still be airing those episodes later on in the evening over here at Juck on Bucks. But that might be for just a small amount of time. I'm not sure. But until everybody gets the hang of going over there to watch it. So really big opportunity for me. Thanks so much to the guys over there for believing in the show. And thank you so much to you guys for believing in the show and making it what it is. And I will continue to do my best with it and continue to grind and get better at it as we go. And we'll see where it takes us. But I'm having a great time. Nothing's changing on my end. But just exciting news for me. And I appreciate you guys so much. The sad state of media today. Imagine being upset at a reporter for doing their job on the biggest cheating scandal in the history of college football. T.S. Saltos 84 says that. T. Saltos, thanks, buddy. And he's talking, of course, about Burt McMurphy calling out Steve Hellwagon, an Ohio State reporter, of course, asking Tony Petitti about the timeline of the NCAA investigation. Chocolate Chip Hoochie Scoochie says, we're going to lock Evan Stewart up. I hope, dude. I don't know if anybody's locking that dude up. I suspect we'll do better on him than anybody else, though. But wow, that guy is quick, super quick. Anyway, guys, that's my show today. Check me out on the weekend show this Sunday at 9 p.m. I already put it out there. Set your alarm bell. Juck and Chris go live. Me and Chris Drew, we're going to do a live show this Sunday, and I'm going to make sure that you guys are heavily involved in that live show. We're going to do it like I usually do, and it's going to be a whole lot of fun. So I'll see you on the regular weekend show, and then I'll see you again on the live show Sunday night at 9. Juck and Chris live. We're going to have a whole lot of fun. See you then, guys. Juck and Bucks out.